Welcome to TalkRx with Dr. Neha. And this week we're going to talk about relationships, when you really love someone and you're just not connecting. And so this is the deal. You can dance alone, but the art of dancing with another takes communication to the next level, right? Being in partnership requires you to tune into your own values and desires while simultaneously paying attention to someone else's. And it's really easy actually to make assumptions that others understand your perspective or have the same priorities as you, or most importantly, they receive love the way you do. And in an earlier blog, I spoke about Gary Chapman's 5 love languages. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen that, go back and look at that one. It's titled 5 Love Languages. And this was happening in my own backyard and I didn't even know it. In December 2001, my family was coming to the West Coast to celebrate my father's 70th birthday. And so I invited my parents to extend their trip in order to attend a week-long retreat in Hawaii that I was teaching. I was a little surprised, right? They said yes, and I found myself up at night worrying about the prospect of leading both of my parents through a week-long communication workshop. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. What if their communication concerns had to do with their middle daughter, me? What would I do if they asked a question about their marriage? Awkward. So I decided to ask my co-facilitator, Bev, who had 40 years of experience leading groups, and she was a trusted advisor and someone who had taught me. She said, Neha, I've taught both of your parents, and they are genuinely interested in their own growth and learning. I'm okay with it if they're okay with it. And if it gets to be too much, you just trust yourself. You can always defer to me. Well, I wasn't going to argue with her. So for the most part, during the workshop, my parents followed the guidelines for participants and stayed focused on their own learning. Now, of course, there were moments that I had to steer them back to their part in a situation, but that was natural, and I expected that I might have to do that. But then we began talking about the fundamental human need to be acknowledged and heard. And that's when things began to heat up. I said to the group, now I'd like you to take out your journal and write about 2 experiences in your life when you felt most valued and heard. So everybody started doing it, and after a few minutes, my mom raised her hand. And she blurts out, what if your husband never tells you that he loves you and he never spends time with you? It's really hard to feel loved and appreciated in a relationship with someone who works all the time. He's never home, and when he is, he's busy with all these other projects, like tennis courts for the community. Just as I was about to answer, my father interrupted with an irritated tone, right? He said, what do you mean? That's not true. I've woken you up with bed chai every morning for decades. I vacuum, I clean the dishes, I'm domestic, I take care of the cars and the house. I spend a lot of time at home. And by the way, I'm not like a poet. I'm not good at saying all those things. My mother's arms were crossed and my father was looking in the opposite direction. I glanced over at Bev and said, I'm going to take a stab at this one, and if I get in trouble, you're on standby, okay? And she just smiled and nodded. I said, Mom, Dad, thank you both for your honesty. And I hear how important being appreciated, acknowledged, and feeling heard and loved is to each of you, and how hard you're both trying to do it. And this is one of the most important points of this week. So Mom, let me start with you first. What I hear you saying is that you value hearing I love you out loud, and that you want more quality time with Dad, but his projects keep him occupied. Is that right? And my mom said, well, doesn't everybody want that? And by the way, the words don't always have to be said out loud. Every once in a while, a card would be nice too. So, wow, my response was, wow, I hear how frustrated you are, and that you may have said this in the past and not felt heard. And it sounds like you feel appreciated when people express their love through words and spend time with you. Yep. And this isn't the first time I've mentioned it. And yes, I've always enjoyed writing letters and reading. Come to think of it, that's how my best friend and I communicated for years, even when I moved here and she was in India. We also spent summers together when I was back home. So yes, time and letters and words mean a lot to me. So I then said, Mom, let me talk through what Dad said, and I'll come back and help you understand why it feels so hard. She nodded, a little unsure it seemed at that point, but she agreed. And so I turned toward my dad and I said, Dad, I hear how hard you work and how domestic you are, how much housework you do, and that you have woken us up with chai every morning. And that these are, in fact, acts of service and love. Is that true? Absolutely, Beti, he replied. This is an unfair comment by your mother because I've always worked so hard, both at work and at home, to show my love. I give everything to you. And he reiterated that he's not good at poems or I love you poems, but that's just not how he was raised. So I hear you, Dad, and I hear that acts of service and providing for the family, cleaning the house and maintaining the cars and making chai is love for you. And one way I've always felt loved and appreciated is through your affection. I love your hugs. I saw him take a deep breath, his shoulders relaxed, and a gentle smile came to his face, and I knew he was softening a little bit. So I began, here's the deal. You're both right. And the problem is you're just not speaking each other's love languages. My parents had an arranged marriage and had been together nearly half a century. And in that workshop, it became so clear to me that the way they were conveying their appreciation to one another was not matching the way the other person received love. It was like they were ships passing in the night. They both wanted to feel valued, yet they were unaware that how they communicated mattered on the receiving end. All it took was some awareness and curiosity about their love languages combined with the ability to listen deeply to turn this love and appreciation disaster around. So when you're feeling challenged in a relationship, right, it's really important to identify the ways that someone else is showing love and appreciation, even if it's different from how you receive it. Because this acknowledges the other person's efforts and creates a common ground. Then you can share with him or her your favorite love language, the one that really resonates. And make sure that you do more than hint. You got to tell the person out loud. Now, it might seem a little awkward initially, but you want to give them this key information so that you can strengthen your relationship together. So for those of you that might not have heard of the 5 love languages, let me just really quick recap what was happening with my parents around this. Gary Chapman talks about 5 love languages and the 5 different ways we receive love and appreciation. The first one is words of affirmation. So what my mother was asking for with my father. Saying I love you or writing cards or letters, right? The second way is quality time. So shared experiences, spending the weekend, downtime, evenings with somebody. The third way is giving someone a gift. So whether it's monetary or not, it can be of high monetary value, medium monetary value, low monetary value, or it can be not of monetary value. It can be of sentimental value. It can be something I drew a picture of you, or I got you flowers. And I might have just picked them as I walked in from the garden. So the third way you show someone that you love or appreciate them is by giving gifts. The fourth way is through acts of service. Now, this was my dad. He was cleaning and, doing all sorts of taking care of the house and the cars and, providing for the family. And making chai, right? These were his acts of service. It's not chai, it's love. He doesn't fill the tank with gas. It's not gas, it's him loving me, right? And the fifth way is through physical touch. And so the interesting piece of all of this is my mom's love languages were words of affirmation, and quality time, while my father's love languages were acts of service and physical touch. And so for half a century, they were like ships passing in the night. So I'm happy to say that it really brought a lot of awareness and connection to them and broke some patterns in our family that were a little bit painful. So I'm wondering, who is it that you want to connect to in your life? And how might you be missing the boat, even though both of you have the best of intentions? So thank you for joining me, and I hope this was helpful. This is Dr. Neha. Write me a comment below. Send me a tweet at hashtag AskDrNeha, AskDoctorNeha. Look forward to hearing from you.